Hello and welcome back to the Scottish Independence Podcasts. This week, to mark the 10th anniversary since the 2014 referendum, we're putting out a series of programmes, both video and audio, just to capture a flavour of the anniversary itself. So in this podcast, we have the main speeches from the Believe in Scotland rally, which took place in Holyrood Park on the 18th. It was a lovely event, one of those beautiful golden evenings. Hope you enjoy it.
A warm welcome to Gordon MacIntyre Kemp.
Hello Edinburgh. And hello to everyone who's at our events happening simultaneously in Orkney and Dumfries and in Aberdeen, and also other events in Stirling and Inverness, and to everybody at home watching this rally and outside broadcast. Now, I want to start by saying that we've got to understand that 10 years ago, Scotland gave one last chance to the Union. But boy, did they mess that up. They've messed it up so completely that the powers that be are actually terrified of a second independence referendum, because they have come to understand what we already know, and that is, if there was another referendum, we would not lose again. Let's be clear, this broken union is actually being held together only by an unhealthy disrespect for democracy by Westminster. That's also an unhealthy disrespect of the people of Scotland, who in a poll this week said they wanted a second independence referendum. Now, 10 years ago tonight, I was at the Count in Glasgow, and every ward in Glasgow was turning yes, and I started to think maybe it's going to happen. But as the Chief Executive Business for Scotland, the Pro-Independence Business Network, who I will proudly tell you was the most active and the biggest spending registered campaign group on either side of the campaign, I had people in every single count across Scotland, and the news coming in wasn't so good from elsewhere. Other than Dundee, of course, and a few other places. When the final result was announced, I was scunnered, and I guess you all were too. So I decided to walk home. Now, I live a long way from the Emirates Arena, so it took me 4.5 hours, maybe even 5 hours to walk home, and trust me, I was not wearing walking shoes. So when I finally got home, round about 6 o'clock in the morning, I poured myself a double whiskey. Might have been a quadruple. I took my socks and shoes off, and I looked at my blistered and bleeding feet, and I started smiling. Started laughing. And I shouted at the top of my voice, woke the whole house up. I shouted, "This is not over." And I hadn't intended to dedicate my life to independence, but that was the moment I realized that I was not going to stop until we were independent, and I know that every one of you feels exactly the same way. To those of you who campaigned, who came together in this Yes family that we created in 2014, for those of you that have campaigned for the decades since, and who campaigned for the decades beforehand to build that platform, I salute you. You're the real heroes of the independence movement. And for those of you that are new to our cause, a very, very warm welcome. Now, some of you may be feeling scunnered again after the last general election result, but I want to say that we need to pick ourselves up, dust ourselves off, and get ready to redouble our efforts. And we need to get our independence movement back to how it was in 2014. We need to bring the Yes family back together. We need to put aside our differences and campaign as one. And if we do that, we will create an unstoppable tide that will wash away all the barriers to independence. We don't need a referendum, though. That's one of the things we've got to realise now. There has been a focus on having a referendum. What we need is a new national conversation like we had in 2014, an enlightening situation where we're out there talking to people about their hopes and dreams to build a better Scotland. That's what moved the polls, not the politics, not the politicians, not the TV debates. It was the conversation that was happening all across Scotland, in the dinner table, in the pub, at the water cooler at work. We can have that conversation again. And Believe in Scotland has actually created a plan to get that conversation going, a new national conversation, and it's called the Citizens' Convention. The plan, first time an actual detailed policy paper about independence has actually got a round of applause. This plan is to take the best ideas from around the world, from experts and governments around the world, as to how to develop a nation that's fit for this century, to face the challenges of this century. And then we take that on the road, a roadshow around Scotland, take it to the Scottish people, and we ask them what they want. We capture the hopes and dreams, their aspirations for a better Scotland. And once we have those hopes and dreams, we put them in a manifesto, and we say to the UK government, can you deliver the type of nation that the people of Scotland want? And when they say no, and when it is clear that they don't even want to try, that's when the people of Scotland will come to independence in their droves, because they realise that the nation they want to create can only be created through independence. That's one of the three foundation stones upon which we can build a new movement towards independence. The second foundation stone is a creative, progressive, well-funded and professional national grassroots-led campaign that goes out and evangelises and takes the campaign to the people and talks not to herself on social media, but talks to the undecided. And Believe in Scotland is that campaign. The third foundation is a professional, competent, election-winning political arm of the campaign. And I guess there's some work to be done on that right now. But if we can actually get all three of these foundation stones in place, we can really push independence support into the 50s, maybe even to the 60s. What the Scottish Government needs to do is it needs to put independence at the heart of all of its policies. Whenever they complain about cuts from Westminster, they need to point out that this would not be happening if we were independent. Every time they say, this is how we think we address things like pensioner poverty, like child poverty, they have to point out that this is how we would do things differently in an independent Scotland. Put it at the top of the agenda, and then independence will rise up the agenda of the Scottish people. So tonight I issue a challenge to the Scottish Government. Fund the Citizens' Convention. Get Scotland talking again about how good independence could be and put us back on the road to nationhood. Now, we've been pivoting our campaign for a year and a bit now away from party politics, away from policy discussions and debates, towards creativity, towards Scotland's culture, towards having more fun, towards being how it was in 2014 when we actually enjoyed campaigning. And that's what made more people turn up. And that's what made the polls move. Earlier this year, we piloted an event called Creating Scotland, and we got comedians and singers, we got playwrights and young actors, we got authors and musicians, and had a great day of Scottish culture. We talked about how we could build a better Scotland. We asked people to write in a bit of paper, just like we have in our wish trees over there. Please go to the wish trees, create a wish. We say to people, so the independent supporters at these events, we say, tell us why you believe in Scotland, and pin that to the wish tree. To the undecided, we say, if you had a magic wand, what's the one thing you would change about Scotland? And believe me, the things they want to change about Scotland cannot be delivered by the Union. It can only be delivered by independence, but they don't realise that until they actually have that conversation. And we'll be rolling Creating Scotland events out right across the country in 2025. In terms of getting the Yes family back together, I want to say right now that I am issuing another challenge. No, not another challenge. I am offering the hand of friendship on behalf of Believe in Scotland. We want to reach out to everyone, every think tank, every yes group, every political party across the nation and say, we want to work with you. We want to get together again so as we can come together with one goal, and that is delivering independence. Let's put aside all that's happened. Let's put aside the turf wars. Let's put aside all the slights, imagined or real, and let's actually say, what's our shared goal? What are our shared values? And let's make it happen. And people have been doing some TV and radio interviews just beforehand there, and they keep on saying, so do you expect there to be a referendum? No, I don't, because they know they're going to lose if they give us another referendum. But what we can do is, if we get independence support moving, if this national conversation moves independence support in the right direction, then a de facto win at Holyrood 26 is still on the cards if everybody starts working now. I want to end with this one thought, this key question. And that is, this is not a wake, it's not a celebration. I hope it's a new beginning. But we lost. The other side won. Where are their celebrations? Where are their grassroots? Where are their marches and rallies for no? Why aren't they celebrating the ongoing austerity? Why aren't they celebrating taking away the pensioners' fuel allowance? Why aren't they celebrating taking away their free BBC licenses? Why aren't they celebrating a totally unavoidable cost of living crisis that sent hundreds of thousands of families across the UK to food banks? Why aren't they celebrating our mortgages costing more? And most of all, why are they not celebrating Brexit? And all the jobs and the hundreds of millions of pounds of exports that have been lost because of it, and all the revenues associated with that, which would actually allow us not to live under this Labour austerity government. So my message to you tonight is, don't be disheartened. Be proud of who you are. Be proud that you've come here tonight. Be proud that you're gathering elsewhere around Scotland or watching on the live feed. Be proud of your belief and the fact that you keep on keeping on and campaigning for independence. But most of all, be proud of the knowledge that you are going to be a key factor in delivering Scotland back to its natural state as an independent nation. Thank you very much.
Please give a rousing welcome to Lesley Riddoch. Well, hello, folks. You know, one thing when Gordon was saying what you would wish for, just one day that stays the same temperature from the beginning to the end. I mean, are you freezing, you guys? But you're still here, eh? That's what we're like. That's what this country is like. Blooming changeable in some respects. And it's great to be reminded. I could feel you guys were singing Hamish Henderson's Freedom Come All You at the start, and all part your elbows. I can feel Hamish looking down at that and glowing. And that's important for us to remember, because there's so many people have come before us, conceptualized where we've got now, thought about our country, created its literature, its music, and they're all part of this, whether they're here today or not. Now, a lot of people are sort of have asked me, do you feel optimistic? And I might be a bit weird, but yes, I do, actually. Honestly, yes, I do. It may not come naturally to us as Scots, but it's time to look on the bright side. You know, right now, we're sitting with opinion polls that have about 50% pretty constantly support for independence. And yet, when you get on the media, you're asked every time if independence is dead. Now, there's a wee logical problem with that. How can something that attracts the support of half the population of our country be dead? And if it is, then what about the other side of the equation? Because if the union's only attracting 50%, maybe it's dead. Now, I know that if you're a movement that's trying to create change, you have to do better than the status quo. And I mean, that's where we're stuck. But, you know, if half the population equals a dead movement, I'm a member of the House of Lords. And I'm absolutely not. And the other thing, just while we're at it, is no independent supporting Scot is. And that's a line in the sand that was drawn more than 10 years ago that remains. That parcel of rogues, no, not for us. It's corrupt, it's out of date, it's archaic, it's part of what's totally wrong with Britain. And we haven't been tempted for a minute. Now, there are problems with the independence campaign at the moment. There's no point denying it. There's the damaging court case that's hanging out of the SNP. There's the Supreme Court ruling that the world's most powerfully devolved parliament. No, I was waiting for a louder laugh than that. Okay, you know, because, I mean, it's shocking that we're sitting beside a parliament, our parliament, and regularly we want this to be the world's most powerfully devolved or independent parliament. But come on, Douglas Alexander was saying it again today. It's a lie. This is not the world's most powerfully devolved parliament. I mean, if you want to look at any of the wee films, the Faroes, for example, the tiny little Faroes, has got the power to decide to remain outside the EU while Denmark joined. Now, I'd say that's pretty powerful. Douglas, you want to catch yourself on, lad. There's far more powerfully devolved parliaments than ours. We're nowhere near it. But anyway, we've got that problem that the Supreme Court has decided that effectively the world's most powerfully devolved parliament cannot consult its own citizens on the colour of the paintwork. That's how powerful this parliament is. It's not allowed. We've got a situation where membership of the SNP is down, votes for the SNP are down. You could be forgiven for thinking everything's down. Attendance at these marches is down, let's be honest. And of course, that's something that skeptics like to point out. I'm sort of looking at you, George Fawkes. I'm sure you're watching tonight because you seem to have nothing better to do of an evening than watch us do stuff, you know, but you're welcome. You're welcome. It's strange that the folk who quibbled about the vast numbers that were on the streets years ago are now touting those same numbers as evidence that everything's in decline. Whatever. Of course, if size matters, these marches are smaller. If youth matters, they're getting on with life until another powerful possibility arises. And without that moment, a goal or a vote, without power in the room, as it was in 2014, it's almost impossible to make a distant future goal matter to people more than the here and now, especially when life's become so difficult. But does that mean yes is over? You're some audience, and it's not even pantomime season yet. What do you like? Might divide you along the middle and start to get this thing moving. What I think it means is that young folk are keeping their collective powder dry. And the yesers of 2014 are perhaps beyond the heady stage, the exciting teenage years, and now have a deep, informed commitment to a different, better future for Scotland. It's not giddy, but it's unshakable. It's not temporary, it's permanent. It's still love, it's just not head over heels right now. And it's ready to go again at the drop of a seriously viable hat. Now, this phase that we're in, it might not be as dramatic as the marches, the meetings, the films, and the street stalls, everything you've put your energy into over the last 10 years. And it's nowhere near as vigorous as many of us would like. I'd like to ask, where's the SNP campaign on the theft of our energy resources right now? Our renewable energy is being stolen the way our oil and gas were removed, and we are saddled with the highest charges in the UK and the highest levels of fuel poverty in Europe. Where's the campaign? Where is the land tax to right the wrongs of feudal centuries? Essentially, to borrow a phrase of a pal of mine, where is the growl? If the SNP doesn't pay attention, this movement has the capacity to act. So be warned. But meantime, let's not turn our noses up at a solid, settled 50% plus, ready to be boosted when the moment arises, because we're still here and we are stubborn buggers. Now, 10 years ago, I stood almost on this spot in the aftermath of the no vote, trying to string a sentence together for TV cameras in the media village that was here. And in all of that melee, I looked down and saw the actor, Brian Cox. I'd managed to keep it going all the way through those interviews, but when I saw that friendly face, I started to greet. And I'll never forget Brian's response, because it's kept me going over the last 10 years. He put his hands on my arms, looked me dead in the eyes with that, should we just say, arresting Logan Roy kind of look, and said, "Lesley, the issues are not resolved." And he was totally right then. He's absolutely right now. Because 10 years on, all the problems with Westminster remain with knobs on. We've got, courtesy of Westminster, we have a massive energy theft, check. We have chronic fuel poverty, check. We have an economy ruined by Brexit, check. We have EU citizenship gone despite promises to the contrary, check. We are still using first past the post alone in Europe with Belarus, check. We are still hosting nuclear weapons on an unwilling Clyde, check. We are still unable to put democracy first and back a ceasefire in Gaza, check. So, we're also hearing Westminster moan about us creating the constant distraction of independence instead of getting on with bread and butter policies, when they have the means to end that distraction now by granting us the chance to have a second vote. It's crazy. And of course, we're still watching designer dresses get supplied to the next Prime Minister's wife. Check. It's like Boris and Carrie all over again. So today we are doing a weird thing. We're celebrating a defeat because despite everything, we are still yes. And that's a victory. It's a victory against cynicism, dejection, and the combined efforts of unionism and the entire media bar one outlet, the National, which is also 10 this year. It's also a victory because research makes the case for optimism. As Professor Sir John Curtace, let's give him his full Sunday name, has told us just in the last week, yes lost the ballot, but it won the campaign. Now, that's not the view of a card-carrying yeser. That's an objective view by an academic. He thinks that years of polling that he's surveyed leads him to say that Scots think leaving the UK and joining the EU will be better for Scotland's economy than the opposite. That's quite a place to have reached. And if we look at another academic, Professor Lindsay Patterson of Edinburgh University, again, not at all a supporter of independence. But he has done years of survey analysis since 1979 and come up with this. Scottish nationalism is not a rebellion by the left behind against elites. The core are well-educated, liberal-minded graduates, and independence has come to be associated with the future. It reflects Scottish nationalism's rhetoric that Britain is stuck in the past. That ideological message is now entrenched amongst younger voters. Well, glory be. Indeed, Professor Patterson predicts 60% plus support for independence by the early 2030s. Now, of course, it's all not in the bag. But perhaps just for one day, for this day, we can all stop beating ourselves up. Will Nicola Sturgeon and Alex Salmond ever speak to each other again? Frankly, for me, it's just not a big priority. Have we got a certain route to independence? No. Is anything in this life certain? No. Are the Scottish media covering this rally? No. Are they bored with Scotland's democratic deficit? Have they written off half a population? And can that make yesers sometimes feel hesitant and small? Yeah. But don't, because a minor miracle is happening. Despite all of this, we are still yes. Should we complain? Should we complain because the SNP leadership doesn't set the heather alight? Should we worry that somehow Scottish Labour might win every seat in Scotland? It's not going to happen. And should we care if the experts decide that the very word yes is last season? I'm still yes. Yes is the most positive word in the world apart from I. Are Gaelic and Scots more colourful and powerful than received pronunciation? Yes. Is a wet Thursday in Saltcoats replete with possibility? Yes. Is a country awash with wind, wave, tide and hydropower and 2 days of sun a tasty proposition? Yes. Is this country more beautiful, resourceful and welcoming than most? On a good day, are we all Jock Tamson's bairns? Do we thank bus drivers when we get off? Are we still European in our heads and hearts? Is our future amongst the other small countries of the North Atlantic? It's astonishing and admirable that people can watch this tonight at home, courtesy of the hard-working volunteers at Independence Live, who need you to chuck cash into their crowdfunder so they can continue to do this work. And you will do it, won't you? So, finally, do we all send our love to Janie Godley, who's Affy na Wheel? Has a generation passed since 2014? Is it priceless hypocrisy for Labour and the Tories to ignore the Brexit-related case for independence? And friends, 10 years on, are we 100% ready for independence now? Yes. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gordon, for the invitation to speak this evening. And I will remember that song we've just heard, and Hearing the Nation. I remember that this day 10 years ago, I thought I was hearing the nation. I was expecting a yes victory. The atmosphere in Glasgow for weeks led me to believe it was in the bag. I'll never forget that day 10 years ago. I'll never forget that feeling that we were on the cusp of a change, the like of which we had never seen before. Energy and hope were everywhere. I spent that day planning the Sunday Herald for the weekend, the Sunday Herald, that would report a yes victory in the referendum. We planned a joyous issue. We wanted to capture the mood of the nation. We were the only newspaper to support independence, and we felt it was down to us to report properly the celebration and the feeling of freedom that a yes vote would bring. I spent the next morning dismantling all those plans. I'm not going to lie, it was a terrible morning. I mourned the opportunity to transform our country for the better. I felt, as we all felt, that independence had slipped through our fingers. But there was another feeling that day. You could just about discern it, just amid the tears that people had been crying. You could feel something was actually happening. You could feel a defiance. You could feel that the spirit was rising. You could feel that it was not over, it was not finished. Social media started to say that we had not finished, we were not at the end of the journey, that this was not the end of something, but this was the beginning. There was a refusal to stand down, there was a refusal to go back into our box. A couple of hours later, we felt that the Yes movement was up and fighting once again. I tweeted at that time how proud the Sunday Herald had been to give a voice to the 45% who had voted for independence. I felt that it was a disgrace that not one voice in the media, not one newspaper, not one news organisation supported independence. And I still can't understand how that opportunity is gone and we are still left with one newspaper. But yeah, I was proud for that to happen, and the response to that tweet made me think that the campaign was just beginning, the campaign would continue, and that really we needed another newspaper. And I guess I can trace back the whole journey and the whole story of the National to that response to that tweet, because later on we would go on to found the National, and the National, which everybody told us was going to die, it would be finished within a week. The people who owned our company said, you can have a week, you can have 1 week to show that there's a readership for the National. This week, or this month, as we celebrate the National's 10th birthday, all the critics were proved wrong. The National still exists to support yes. Still here, still yes. So yeah, we put our plans back into place, and we said we are not going to produce an issue to mourn, to cry, to look at the end of some great movement. We were going to produce an issue to celebrate the birth of the Yes movement, and that is what we did. And we put a picture of George Square rally in the front, and we used inspirational quotes from the campaign, and we tried to show that we had started something, and the Yes movement was going to continue it, and the Yes movement was going to grow. And that story, that issue, sold more than we had sold for years, and it was an amazing response, and we were so pleased, and I remain so grateful to all of you and to all of the movement who have bought the paper and supported it, and so that we are still here. And we are still here together, and we are still yes. So yeah, we supported a movement and celebrated a movement that had campaigned and argued for change and change minds. And against all the odds, we pushed the vote to within touching distance of a victory, a movement that was still very much alive. And looking out over this gathering today, it's still very much alive. And we'll be alive until we bring independence home, until we reach our goal, which we will do. Because that's why we're here tonight. We're not here to celebrate a failure. We're not here to mourn. We're here to share with thousands of people all over the country who share a dream to remember that the referendum of 2014 was not the end of something, but the beginning. We're here to celebrate an event which woke Scotland up and made it a different country. A country that is moving relentlessly towards taking control of its own destiny. In 2014, Scotland became alive to the possibility of change. The debate was everywhere, at work, at home, street corners. We talked about our place in Europe. We talked about our currency. We talked about our voting system. The potential to make our country better, fairer, more just, more welcoming, more confident. Young and old, we were all energised and galvanised to take part in a great debate and think about those issues. Scotland has now one of the most politically active populations in the world and one of the most politically educated populations in the world, because we had to become educated ourselves. We took it upon ourselves to become educated, so that when we heard the lies of Better Together, we saw them for what they were, and we still see them today for what they are. Lies, but we do not believe them. Because once a country wakes up in the way that Scotland woke up in 2014, it doesn't go back to sleep. It doesn't go back in its box. It doesn't do what it's told. It stays alive to the possibilities. It stays alive to the potential to change. So that weekend, the Sunday Herald celebrated. We sent a message. We're still here. We're still yes. The Sunday Herald we produced that weekend was upbeat and positive and joyous. It was an achievement I still remain proud of, and it paved the way for the National, which is, as I said, celebrating its 10th anniversary, our birthday, later on this year. So we stand here tonight, 10 years later. In many senses, these are dark days. The storm clouds of austerity continue to gather. The Westminster government's promises of better days have been shattered. Our hopes have been betrayed. We see Labour for what they are, and what they are is a party which will do the Tories' bidding, which will continue to impose austerity on us and stand in the way of our democratic desire. And we will not stand for it, and we will not take it. We know that independence still offers the hope that we recognised in 2014. It still represents the promise of a better life, a better country. It offers a break from the same old, which keeps us in our place. But we will not allow the pro-union parties to deny us forever. Now, Gordon is right when he says that there are many strands to the campaign's future. The national conversation that he suggests is a great idea, and it will change minds. Conversations between us and our neighbours change minds. That's how you produce change. He's right again to say that culture plays a great part in our movement, and we've heard it tonight. Scottish culture is among the best and finest in the world, and it's been too long dismissed as nonsense. And now we need to reclaim that for our movement, and we are doing so. And there are all these different strands, but I believe we need a vote. I believe that we will win the vote, and I believe we will get it. I believe that it's our job to take the power and have the vote. And we need to tell our politicians in that building there that we want a vote, and we don't want a Section 30. We don't want Westminster's permission to have the vote. It's us, it's our country, it's our future, and we will have a vote on it when we want it. We've done what the politicians asked of us. They said, wait. And we waited, and it wasn't such a bad thing. I thought I could see the point of it. We waited, we were reasonable, we argued, we made the point, we waited. They said, now is not the time. We went back later and they said, no, now's still not the time. And we know, now is never going to be the time for a vote. But we don't wait anymore. We've had it with waiting. We've had it with being responsible. We want a vote, and we want it whenever we think we can win it. And we will win it. Because one of the reasons that we win it is that we know now what happens when we vote no. We've seen it. We've lived through it. Will we ever again believe the promises that the Better Together parties make? No. Will we ever again swallow the vows of the Westminster parties? No. Will we be swayed by the love bombs of the rich and the famous living high in the hog outside our borders? No, we will not. The vows will be ignored. We know they'll be ignored because they have been ignored. We know the promises that they make. They might sound fantastic, but they are empty words and they will never come to pass, and we will not listen to them again. We will not be allowed, we will never be allowed to lead the union from the front. We will be ordered to the back of the queue. We will be ordered to do as we're told. We now know what a no vote really means. We know what Better Together promise. We know what it means. We've seen it. We suffer from it. And we know one thing. We will never, ever be fooled again. Thank you very much.
Now for our final speech tonight. It is Andrew Barr. In 2011, at the age of 19, Andrew became one of the founding members of the National Collective, the cultural campaign for a yes vote.
Hello. I was a bit nervous about doing this tonight, but as soon as I got here and I saw all of you, I just thought, do you know what? These are my people. This is my movement. I'm so proud to be part of this movement with you. So thank you for having me. So I was part of National Collective, the cultural campaign for independence in the run-up to 2014. And the whole idea behind National Collective was that building a new country is a creative act. So we worked with a lot of writers and artists, but it didn't actually matter if people personally thought that they were creative or not, because the whole purpose was to encourage everybody in society to think more imaginatively about the possibilities of the future. Most of the successful independence movements in history have coincided with a movement of culture, including artists and writers and musicians. Because culture isn't just about a bit of entertainment on the side of politics. Culture is about actively engaging the imagination. It's about setting aside all of the limitations that the Union places upon us about who we are and who we can be. It's about opening up the infinite possibilities for Scotland to reimagine and reinvent itself with independence. I would like to see culture and creativity play a bigger part in the role of the future independence campaign. But when I talk about culture, I'm not necessarily talking about people's identity. I'm talking about culture as in, how do we encourage people to feel empowered? How do we encourage people to imagine the different possibilities? How do we encourage people to believe that they themselves are able and capable of building something better than the status quo? This is all related to culture. And of course, the economics of independence are really important, but I think there also needs to be space to have a deeper conversation about Scotland's future, because independence is not simply a financial transaction. Independence is about the empowerment and self-belief and self-determination of the entire community of Scotland. Independence is about Scotland finding new ways to express itself, being able to articulate ourselves in our own voices as part of the international community. That's why it's connected, because self-expression and self-determination are two sides of the same coin. And let's not forget that culture also played a part in the No campaign, because they tried to convince us that staying part of the Union was all about togetherness. That was their kind of cultural argument. But this was a completely misleading argument, because if the UK is all about togetherness, then why is it governed in the way it's governed? Why is it one of the most unequal countries? Why is there such a significant gap between the rich and the poor? Why are the Scottish people denied their democratic rights to decide their own future? It is our vision of an independent Scotland, with equality and fairness at its heart, which is much more of an embodiment of the spirit of togetherness than anything that the Union can provide or anything that the Union ever will be. So if you believe in what togetherness actually means, if you believe in building community and looking out for each other in society, then join us in the fight for independence, because that's what independence is all about. An independent Scotland will be born by the creativity and imagination of our people. We have spent far too much of our time worrying about whether the Union is going to give us permission. We don't need anyone's permission to start building the foundations of our new country now. And if Westminster doesn't engage in the question of Scotland's future, then they are simply making themselves irrelevant to Scotland's future, because we're going to start building it regardless. It's important to be realistic. We know that independence isn't happening tomorrow or the next day. But at the same time, do not underestimate the power of what you decide to do now, because what we decide to do now brings the destination closer to us. The power is in all of us right now to start building a new Scotland together. And I just want to finish by making one final point, that sometimes a change in culture is the very thing that makes political change possible. There was a shift in Scottish culture in the years before Scotland achieved a devolved parliament. So political change often becomes possible when the culture is ready. So let's focus on building a culture of independence, because it's that sense of normalisation of the creativity and imagination of our people that will lay the foundations of an independent Scotland. Thank you so much.
I just wanted to come up again at the end and actually see how many hardy souls made it to the end of the event. Thank you very much for your support, for your hard work. Couple of things I want to finish off with. Okay, so what next? What do we do next? Well, on the 28th of this month, Believe in Scotland is going to hike for a campaign day. We've had about 7 of these already. We take people from all over the country and we hit a town and we leaflet every single door in the town and we put loads of stands on the streets. We have an 8-page leaflet specifically for the borders that says what independence will do for the borders. We are taking the fight to the areas where yes support needs to rise. We had about 100 people, if you include the Yes Bikers at Moffat. So please do come along to that. Also, today, thousands of people have been sharing the Still Yes hashtag. So, or when you get home, share the Still Yes hashtag. If you've got the picture of the poster from the National on your window, share that today, share it tomorrow, and tell people why you believe in Scotland. If you put the Still Yes hashtag or Believe in Scotland hashtag in there, then we'll pick it up and reshare it. But I've got a bit of an announcement. You know that we've launched a crowdfunder earlier this month. Campaigning costs money. I'm not asking you to donate to it. What I'm going to tell you is that we set a target of £60,000 over 5 weeks of this crowdfunder. We're 6 days into it, and we're only a few £100 away from hitting our 5-week target. Don't let anyone tell you there isn't an aptitude to actually campaign for independence. Thank you if you've given to that crowdfunder already. I've put this image up here. You may see that on your way home. We have got billboards across the Central Belt. We've got the Clydeside Expressway with a Still Yes image. And this image here, Independence is Normal, is right across Edinburgh right now in about 9 or 10 electronic billboards. We're already spending the money that people have given to that crowdfunder. So thank you very much. We campaign when others complain. We are Believing Scotland, and we're going to make a difference. You are Believing Scotland, and you're going to make the difference. Thank you very much, and good night.
So there we are, 10 years on from the referendum, and we're all still yes, we're still positive. Some wonderfully inspirational speeches there. So thanks for listening, everybody. If you'd like to watch the whole event, you'll find the live stream on Independence Live's YouTube channel, and we'll put the links to their crowdfunder and the Believe in Scotland crowdfunder in the notes. Catch you all later. Bye now.